In anime, we've had many iconic fights, but not too long ago we had a fight that broke everything. Gojo vs Sukuna, two of the most powerful characters in current shonen in a confrontation that was already a global event in the manga. And while we know that Jujutsu Kaisen has already given brutal scenes, with this fight, the bar is higher than ever. This fight simply can't be good. It's going to have to be perfect. And in this video, we're going to talk about why it's so important to adapt in a good way. What risks does MAPPA have as a studio? When could we get to see it, and why it might even be better to make it in movie format? If we're talking about highly anticipated fights in the world of anime, Gojo vs Sukuna isn't just another one. It's the fight that everyone wants to see animated, the one that, for years, has been building up as the inevitable showdown between two monsters, and when it finally arrived in the manga, it was crazy. Every week, the networks exploded with panels, theories, debates, and that was just the manga. Imagine what he's going to do when we see it animated. But why does this fight generate so much expectation? What is it about this fight that others don't? First, we have to understand what these two characters represent within the Jujutsu Kaisen universe. He's the strongest, the one everyone admires, the one who seems invincible. His presence not only imposes, but protects. Gojo is the pillar that supports the modern sorcery system. If he's present, all is well. And on the other side is Sukuna, the king of curses, the most feared being in the entire history of the Jujutsu Kaisen universe, the one who existed long before modern sorcerers, a kind of cursed deity who, even when sealed, is still a threat. The clash between the two is not just a battle of powers, it's a war of ideologies. One represents order and the other chaos. One fights to protect his own and the other of his own free will. The most interesting thing is that Akutami took his time building that tension. It's not a fight that just popped up out of nowhere. It's been brewing since Itadori became the vessel for his kunai. From the first time Gojo set foot on him, it's the culmination of everything. Aside from the fight in the manga, it wasn't just lights and explosions. It was a technical fight with strategy, with complex concepts that were introduced throughout each chapter. Everything was loaded with symbolism and detail. Every blow, every technique, every shot was designed to leave a mark, and it did. It's no exaggeration to say that during its publication in the manga, this fight literally stopped time. Week after week, the chapters were trending. Threads opened explaining the moves, theories about who would win, comparisons to other fights. Everything was an event, a phenomenon, and that's what makes this fight so important. It's important to animate in general, because we all know that if this is animated badly, it's going to be historic. And there's also a very strong emotional component. Gojo is not just another character. For many fans, he is the character. Seeing him at his peak, giving it his all, and facing his deadliest enemy is something that doesn't happen again. And it's not just about winning or losing, but what risk, legacy, and downfall mean. And on his side of Sukuna, it's also a moment. It's when we truly see him for what an unstoppable force he is. Someone who fights with a perfect blend of savagery and calculation, who doesn't underestimate anyone but doesn't give up either. He's the only one who can stand up to Gojo, and he does it with style. This fight is the turning point of the entire story. It changes the pace, the characters, and the tone of the manga. It's a turning point. That's why the adaptation can't be just another one. It can't be right. It has to be historic. If they break it, it could rank as one of the best anime fights of all time. But if it fails, as we've already said, the blow will also be historic. Now, let's be real. This fight is still quite a long way from being animated. As much as we want to see it, the pace of the anime and what we know so far indicate that it's still quite a long way off. For starters, we don't even have the third season officially confirmed as a season. The only thing that's been announced is that the story will continue, but everything indicates that it will be a season. Then Gojo's fight against Sukuna would not be adapted until 2027 or later, and obviously this is being optimistic, because even if the anime maintains a constant pace and there are no delays, we are talking about a minimum wait of 2 years. But that's where the possibility that could change everything comes in. And instead of thinking about a season, we are talking about a movie. Given the state of the industry, it is not such a crazy idea. We already saw it before with Jujutsu Kaisen, which was a prequel, but it worked perfectly as a movie. Also, here we have another interesting fact. The fight takes place on December 24th within the story. And let's remember that the Jujutsu Kaisen movie premiered on December 24th, 2021, because the main event of the movie also took place on December 24th. So, if they decide to make a movie instead of a season, although the animation work will be very demanding, the production process is more contained. They don't have to produce 12 or 24 episodes. It will be a single, more concentrated project, then hopefully with more time to polish every detail. In that case, it is possible that we will see it sooner than expected. But the best case scenario for me would be late 2027, repeating the move on December 24th, 2027. A perfect date for what it represents in the story and for its commercial potential. The best thing would be a movie. First of all, we have to understand the magnitude of this fight. It's not just 1 or 2 chapters. Gojo's fight against Sukuna is almost 15 complete chapters of manga, which is equivalent to about 200 pages. No interruptions, no subplots, no pauses. And as ideal as that sounds for a TV anime, the reality is that anime often fragments these fights with unnecessary cuts, openings, endings, and even recaps. On that note, a movie would allow you to watch the entire fight in a row without interruptions, all in a single experience, with a constant rhythm and a natural progression from beginning to end. And most importantly, with a more concentrated production. A movie is not necessarily easier to make, but being shorter in total length than a 12 or 24 episode season allows more time to be dedicated per animated minute. There's a larger budget and perhaps greater creative freedom in the direction. We have already had examples of this working. We have Jujutsu Kaisen's own movie, which adapted about 200 pages of the manga in an hour and a half. And it wasn't just action, it also had exciting story development. If they managed to condense all that and maintain the quality, it's clear that adapting a 280-page fight as a movie is totally viable. One of the main criticisms that many have about a movie may be the issue of pacing, which can be tiring, and because it's so frenetic there are no pauses or respite. But in this case it's not a problem, it's part of the experience. This fight has to feel that way, fast-paced, tense, and with no time to let your guard down. That's precisely the feeling that the manga conveyed, and it's something that a movie can replicate perfectly. But of course, adapting this fight as a movie has a downside. It would take longer if the distribution plan continues to wait a few months until it reaches theaters outside of Japan in general. It wouldn't be something we would see simultaneously, but if quality is what matters, it's worth the wait, because this isn't just a fight, it's the most important moment, and if what you're looking for is to immortalize it, there's no better format than a movie. When we talk about Gojo's fight against Sukuna, we're not just talking about another scene, we're talking about a series-defining moment that could go down in anime history or disappoint millions. That's why the big question is whether MAPPA can handle this, whether it's up to such a challenge. And the answer isn't as easy as yes or no, because if we're talking about talent and technical ability, the truth is that it is. MAPPA has what it takes. They've proven it more than once. But the problem isn't the talent, it's the pace. MAPPA has been stuck in an almost suicidal production spiral for years. So, yes, MAPPA could be an incredible adaptation, but there's also the risk that the production could collapse, as has already happened, that there could be cutbacks, that it would be delegated to third parties, or that the final result wouldn't live up to the hype, and that a fight like this, as we mentioned, has no room for error. That's why the idea of making this fight as a movie is gaining strength again, because it would give the studio a little more breathing room. It's not the same having to deliver a weekly episode for 6 months as working for 2 years or a year on a closed 2-hour project. A movie focuses resources, maintains a consistent team, and ensures quality from the first minute to the last. It must also be taken into account that this fight is visually very complex. It is not just an exchange of blows. We have changes of domain, rotations, special effects, technical shots, explosions, spatial distortions, and a lot of concepts that require perfect coordination between animation, direction, and sound. This cannot be done with a half-powered team or with impossible deadlines. And it is not only about the quality of the animation, there is also the pressure, because the community is going to be watching very closely. This is not going to be any ordinary event. Everyone has very high expectations. If MAPPA succeeds, they will consecrate themselves, but if they fail, they will leave a huge stain. So yes, MAPPA has the talent, but also a huge responsibility. Gojo's fight against Sukuna is not just another challenge, it is the ultimate test. If there's one thing that's clear with Gojo versus Sukuna, it's that you can't animate it halfway. It's not enough for it to simply look good. This fight needs an impeccable adaptation because every detail matters, and it's not just for the visual spectacle, but for the complexity behind it. First, there's the issue of techniques. Techniques and skills don't just have to look brutal, they also have to be understood. In the manga, you had time to read it, process it, and go back. But in the anime, if it's not explained well or if it's edited poorly, the average viewer won't understand it because the fight will go by quickly, but it has a very strong tactical and conceptual charge that can't be ignored. Then there's the staging. The fight is literally destruction on a grand scale. There are moments where entire buildings are blown up, parts of Shinjuku are reduced to rubble, and all of that with surgical precision. It's not chaos just for the sake of chaos. It's chaos with intention. MAPPA is going to have to combine well-thought-out choreography, powerful special effects, and a director who knows when to slow down and when to speed up. The emotional aspect must also be taken care of. So even though it is a technical fight, it is also the most intense moment for Gojo. It is his final battle. It has moments of pride, reflection, and doubt, and if it is not executed well, all the emotional weight of the climax is lost. Finally, Something that seems minor, but is not, is the sound. The fight needs a soundtrack that accompanies the level of madness. Well-placed silences, explosions with real impact, and voices that convey tension. If that fails, no matter how good the animation is, it will not hit the same. The adaptation of Gojo vs. Sukuna is not only important for Jujutsu Kaisen fans, it is important for the entire anime industry, because we are talking about one of those moments that can change how a studio, a work, and even the format in which these types of confrontations are produced in the future are perceived. If MAPPA manages to adapt it well, it will be historic, and I do not just mean because of the visuals, but also because of the context in which it occurs. The fight already has historical hype from the manga. If the anime manages to replicate that impact, it will be talked about for many years to come. It will set a standard. The fight is not just another clash in an anime, it is the event, the clash between two titans that we have been waiting for since the first chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen, and that in the manga has already become one of the most talked about moments of the last decade. Adapting it well is not an option, it is a necessity, because it is not just about animating good blows or spectacular effects. It is about capturing everything that this duel represents: the tension, the technique, the symbolism, and the emotional impact. Every movement has a weight, every shot has to communicate something. They cannot afford for anything to go unnoticed, to summarize it or explain it poorly. And precisely for that reason, the option of making the movie seems the most logical, not because of the visuals, but because of the rhythm. It's a fight that's best enjoyed in a continuous fashion, without any cuts or interruptions, and if MAPPA takes the time to produce it calmly, focused solely on that, something historic could come out of it. Obviously, there are risks involved. If it's done poorly, the exception will be huge, but if it's done well, we'll be witnessing one of the best animated fights of all time. The level of expectation is already very high, and that can only be achieved when a fight transcends its own work and becomes a phenomenon.